This is TWiT.
Man, I really need this thing. Your instinct is to open up that browser and boom, 2 seconds later, you've placed the order. You don't have it immediately, but close enough. You have it tomorrow, and you probably get it without having to spend anything extra because you're probably already a Prime subscriber, which inspires you or pushes you to order even more through Amazon. And then, of course, very recently, you had predicted that Amazon would acquire a brick-and-mortar store for years. You even predicted that they might buy Whole Foods, which they did not very long ago. How did you call that so succinctly? You were spot on. Everybody was touting that. So how did you know?
I got lucky. All the moons lined up. I was on a bunch of media the week before, and they kept saying, "You've been predicting Amazon's going to brick and mortar." There is no such thing as a successful e-commerce company. Pure play e-commerce does not work. Show me a pure play e-commerce company, and I'll show you a company that's either going to open stores or go out of business. Consumers don't live in isolation of any one medium. Very few companies have the access to nearly infinite capital of Amazon. I knew at some point they would have to go into brick and mortar, and people started asking who, and I said they should buy these 500 well-lit warehouses in unbelievable neighborhoods that have access to all these long-tail brands called Whole Foods. And with Whole Foods, they now have permission to get into our refrigerators twice a week. Amazon's entire strategy, as I see it, I don't know this. I purposely don't have an open dialogue with Amazon because I don't want to be co-opted, or I don't want to start to like them. But you have basically a company that's figured out how do we turn a traditionally non-recurring relationship retail into a recurring software-like business model. And the way they've done that is with Prime. And I think their entire strategy at the center of it is Prime. And they now have a recurring revenue relationship with 62% of American households. But you can't create intensity around a household without intimacy. And intimacy is a function of the number of times you have contact. And people are buying from Amazon, who even are Prime members, 2 or 3 times a month. But the only way you get them to once or twice a week is through the largest consumer category in the world, and that's grocery. And now with Whole Foods, they have access into our refrigerators once or twice a week. Whole Foods is about to become the grocery equivalent of a Mercedes for the price of Toyota. Amazon is going to overlay their operational excellence and, more importantly, their 0% ROI hurdle rate. And you're about to see prices get a cut across the board, and all of us are going to have the one excuse for why we didn't shop at Whole Foods all the time taken off the table, and that is it's too damn expensive. Well, guess what? It's about to become a lot less expensive. Whole Foods to Amazon is going to be what Instagram was to Facebook. It's going to be seen as probably the best acquisition of the last decade.
Fascinating. And you had even mentioned prior to the acquisition happening that they could even shut down all of those locations and convert them into straight-up warehouses and still justify the price. Post-acquisition, do you still believe that to be the case now that we kind of know well, do we know all the numbers? What the numbers ended up as, and would you still say that?
Yeah, $13 billion on a $450 billion market cap company. Everyone said they'd never made an acquisition over $1 billion. Zappos had been the biggest at $800 million, but on a dilutive level, it was about the same price because they only had to give up about 2 or 3%. So for 2 or 3% dilution, they saved 10 or 20 years trying to figure out a warehouse with employees situated in these highly affluent, dense places. So they don't need to close them down, and they're not going to. But if they had intelligent, educated, trained employees and access to thousands of long-tail food brands, which is what we all want, you're not buying Kellogg's, you're not buying Yoplait yogurt, you're buying some cool kefir thing out of Brooklyn, or you seem like the kind of guy to me that loves craft brews. And Whole Foods has established all of these relationships and has the supply chain figured out to get it to a warehouse that's within 3 miles of the wealthiest people in the nation, called a Whole Foods store. And the amount of time to set up those 500 warehouses and those relationships with those thousands of long-tail food brands and then figure out the distribution for all of that, that would take even Amazon. That would take, call it 6, 8, probably 10 years. So it was a 3% dilution to get intensity across all of these refrigerators with this setup of distribution, logistics, and supply chain relationships. Is that worth 2 or 3% dilution? Hands down. Hands down. Even if they closed the stores tomorrow. I get giddy thinking about this from a corporate strategy standpoint. They could have paid $30 billion for this thing. I reached out to some of my CPG clients and said, you guys got to put together a consortium and put in a counterbid. And they said, well, why would we want to do that? And my first reason was, if these big brands don't start controlling the distribution and they're totally dependent upon Kroger's and bodegas and 7-Elevens, their brands are done. They're toast. You have to get better distribution, and Whole Foods is a fantastic point. So it would make sense just strategically to own this asset. And then they said, but we're not going to get it. Amazon has infinite capital, and they'll be able to outbid us. And my attitude was, well, damn straight. Make them pay more. Start peeing on more fire hydrants and pushing Amazon back. I don't know how I went on this riff. Anyways, I think this was a fantastic acquisition for Amazon, and I think it was the worst possible news in the world for other grocers. And by the way, so does the market. What happens in between the time Amazon acquired Whole Foods? The largest pure play grocer, Kroger's, declined 30% in between the time Amazon announced the acquisition of Whole Foods and when they closed it. And keep in mind, this is a company 1/11th the size of Kroger. Mm-hmm. The day they announced it, their stock went up by the amount of the purchase price of Whole Foods, and the market capitalization of the other grocers declined by the acquisition price. So Amazon has so much credibility in the markets right now, it can go shopping for companies on their competitor's credit card. They can announce an acquisition, and the competitors in that category have to pay for it because Amazon's market cap goes up and their competitors goes down. We have never seen anything like this.